Okay, so we're here with another video update. This time it's a leg day. It's actually the day after my last video update, which was back in biceps. And still 18 weeks out here, roughly. And let's just go in there and I'll take you through it. So for anyone that doesn't know me or isn't familiar with my physique or my stage physique, quads, hams, calves, glutes always have been a competition strong point. It really isn't anything that I train any differently from any other body part that might not be a strong point or as strong of a point. I think having a high work capacity and work ethic might pay dividends for legs a little bit more than, say, biceps or triceps or shoulders. And that might be why my legs are a little bit stronger than my back or my chest or something like that. So when it comes down to asking for, certain advice or techniques to grow legs, I really haven't trained any differently. My back has come up a lot, and I had to put in some pretty serious time and a lot of thoughtful programming for back development over the past 2 years, but it hasn't been too, masterful or complicated for training legs. I just really enjoy training legs, really enjoy getting after them, trying to push myself, see how far I can my mentality can take my physicality, is how I like to put it. So anyways, I start off with a superset. Again, we're working at three working sets of 8 to 12 reps, and I'm doing hack squats and then barbell jump squats. With the hack squats, I'm just trying to keep everything in line. So hips, knees, ankles all in line. I'm not doing a wide stance. Trying to drop my butt right below my ankles, keep my knees in line, and obviously keep tension on the target muscle the entire time. With the barbell squats, I just got out of a training block where I was barbell squatting without a jump, and after a while you just don't want to put 385 pounds on your back to squat for multiple sets of 4 and 6. So my spine's really thanking me for that. My lower back is really thanking me for that. But this is also a good way to just kind of still have a barbell squatting movement in that doesn't require a tremendous amount of poundage, but you still get the same activation out of it, if not more, for the value of the weight that you're actually moving. And another thing here with the hack squats, you want to notice I'm using a full range of motion. I'm trying to touch my hamstrings and my calves on every single rep here, and I'm not locking out on the top. It is kind of a rest, and there's a bit of a debate that I see with that, but I mean, it's very simple. If you need to rest, then that's fine. You absolutely take it. But I feel like you should always try to keep your reps tempos consistent, at least if you're not focusing on certain, amounts of time. As this gets up, and there's still a few more weeks on the training block for me, as the weight goes up, I'm sure I'm going to rest on reps 11 and 12, but if it's not necessary, don't. The hack squats got up to 320, I believe, and then the sled and the barbell jump squats got up to 210 for sets of 12 and 8. Then the next superset I do is a seated hamstring curl, and then an exercise ball curl, lying exercise ball curl, or a Swiss ball curl, whatever you want to call it. You'll also notice that this is a little bit different than the previous day's workout where there was no supersets, everything was done in a straight set. Like I said, my legs are an absolute strong point. I'm not super hungry for adding tissue on them at this point. Being a natural bodybuilder with very good legs, I'm a little bit lucky, I'm a little bit blessed, but it's almost to a point where if I'm just hammering out straight sets of 6, 8, 10, and 12, there's a chance that on stage it might be a little bit too overpowering. like they were in my first show, and I don't want to get back to that point. I spent a lot of time working on my V-taper and working on, my chest and my back width and back thickness and my deltoids. So supersets is a good way to still push really hard, still tear down a lot of muscle fibers, and it's not, I feel anyways, quite as conducive to just slapping on a bunch of size. But with the seated hamstring curls, a few things here. Like what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to connect my ankles to my bum. I'm trying to squeeze hard. I almost think of it as like a preacher curl or a Scott bench curl for your hamstrings. I feel like it's one of the best hamstring builders, if not the best hamstring builder, seated hamstring curl. Some people like the lying hamstring curl. But just the way that your body's set up anatomically, the profile and the strength curve of this seated hamstring curl anyways, it's by far my favorite hamstring exercise. And then the exercise ball curl, if you haven't done these before, you should really try them out. They look like an absolute sissy exercise, but at the back end of a superset, whenever you've already the front part of a superset has been, say, a lying hamstring curl, a seated hamstring curl, even some sort of hip extension movement. These absolutely burn you. They absolutely take a lot out of you too. So for the seated hamstring curls, worked up to 147.5 for sets of 12. Obviously, there's no added poundage for the exercise ball curls. But you can see the one superset that's mainly quad oriented, and then the second superset is mainly hamstring oriented. Obviously, again, you get to see the showcase of the Casper the White skin tone, but even at 18 weeks out, having any sort of definition in my hamstrings, having any sort of what I like to call the quad ledge visible, makes me happy. I like to be a little bit ahead of schedule just in case anything does come up, and especially this season too. You never know. The shows have already been postponed and canceled, so I feel it's very beneficial for me to be a little bit more ahead of schedule at this point. Next movement I do in a straight set, it's 3 sets of 12, is barbell walking lunge. So with these, and I've always preached this, but it's not about walking 100 yards or 80 yards or whatever. It's execution of reps, right? The way I like to do these is I like to it's almost, some people would call it like a duck walk lunge, which it's not for me. I'm just trying to primarily focus on quadriceps versus hamstrings and glutes. So much shorter stride than usual. I am trying to break parallel on the lunge, and for some people it's a little bit hard because of balance or because of tightness or flexibility, whatever it might be. But on the working leg, so in the leg that is ahead, I'm trying to get my femur below parallel to the floor. So how do I do this? I take a little bit of a shorter stride so that I'm almost dropping my back knee behind my front heel. It's almost like a one-legged squat into a one-legged squat is like what I'm sort of thinking of while I'm doing this. So step back lunges, walking lunges, whether it be with a barbell or a dumbbell or any sort of load, I generally have one of those movements in every single training block that I do. Some people don't really find them useful, or they find how taxing they are versus the benefit that you get for them in terms of muscle accrual. It might be a little bit point of a diminishing returns, or it could just be like a low return on your investment. I absolutely love these. They're not many more exercises make me feel like an absolute caveman than just having something on my back and lunging it around. Generally, I like to do these outside, but again, with the circumstances right now, it's not something that's the most practical, especially in a closed gym. So we just walk back and forth, 12 steps each leg here, work up to 125. And after the walking lunges, which again, I'm trying to make a a quad-oriented or a quad-dominant movement just through minor tweaks. Move on to another hamstring-dominant movement, which is one of my favorites. It's definitely my favorite hip extension movement anyways, is barbell stiff leg deadlifts. And worked up to 290 here. Actually, a quick check of the notes, and it was 295. Not that that's super impressive anyways, but you better believe I'm going to give myself the extra 5 pounds. And so I do these a little bit different than you probably see commonly online as well. What I try to do is I try to set my knee flexion at a fixed degree or angle the entire set. So it's about 15 degrees. I never go straight-legged. But what I'm trying to work on here is hip extension and hip flexion almost exclusively. So the easiest way to think about that is stand with a small degree of bend in your knee. You have the load, which is the barbell, and then all I'm trying to do is maintain a good posture, so trying to keep my spine neutral, even though sometimes it fails, and that's not always the worst thing in the world to do on a stiff leg barbell deadlift anyways, as long as you can keep it safe. I'm trying to move my hips back as far as they can go, which will lower the barbell and create torso flexion. And then I am trying to slam my hips in to that bar, move them inwards as far as I can, which will create torso extension and bring that barbell up so I can work against the load. I'm seeing a lot of not Romanian deadlifts and not stiff leg deadlifts being called Romanian deadlifts and stiff leg deadlifts. It's all over social media. People are flexing their knees, just not as much as they would in a conventional deadlifts, but still doing it. And using a whole bunch of, like, they're activating their lats, their spinal erectors, which to a certain degree you should on a stiff leg deadlift as well. But that should never be the primary mover. And then calling it a hamstring exercise and being proud of X amount of weight. You can see on this angle here on the last set that there is no shortage of hamstring activation from the bottom of this movement. I'm not initiating the movement with my lumbar spine, my spinal erectors, with my lats. It's all coming from hip extension, hip flexion, which is how you are going to initiate a movement that is targeting hamstrings. Anyways, I digress. After the 6 movements for thighs or legs, move on to calves. And so the first movement is a seated calf raise. Nothing too special here. The one thing I would say is you don't have to do anything spectacular or extravagant to grow calves. Some people, it's just like a genetic predisposition to have great calves or to have terrible calves. My calves are pretty good. They're not amazing. They're overshadowed, obviously, by my quads and my hamstrings and my glutes. But they're still adequate, and I've never trained them any other way than I have any other body part. So it's not like I've done 100 rep sets in a training block for 12 weeks, or it's not like I've done time under tension for 90 seconds in a set. This is 3 sets of 8. Move on to the next one, which is a Smith calf raise, which is at my gym the only variation that you can really do securely with like a standing calf raise. Otherwise, you can do off the ground, but I don't like how you can't get any sort of stretch. I don't like to use anything for balance here. I have put plates under my toes and done just so I can get a little bit of a full plantar and dorsiflexion. But yeah, work up to, I think, 175 on the seated calf raise, up to 230 with the Smith calf raise. Then it's abs. So this is a long workout for sure. My leg workouts include calf and ab exercises, obviously, as you can see. Again, another thing with abs, I don't train them any more extravagant than I do chest or back. Rep range is slightly higher, and we do more sets. So it's 5 sets of 15. No specific reasoning for that. I just feel like they're a little bit more dense, and it just takes a little bit more to really break down all the muscle protein in your abdominals. So 5 sets of 15 with the sit-ups, 5 sets of 15 each side here with the oblique crunches. And as you can see, I am absolutely glow in the dark. And this isn't any sort of ab slimming or trimming movement. Of course, here you get a little bit more oblique than like standard sit-up. But I believe waist size honestly comes from A, being as low as possible in body fat, and then B, portion control whenever you're eating. So never be distended whenever you're prepping, unless it's like, you know, if you're doing some aggressive skip loading or shit loading or a carb loading process. You should never be distended. And I actually believe that in itself, making your stomach smaller, will actually make your whole waist smaller. But the reason that I include abs in a training block, at least like a prescribed structured training block, is I don't want any part of my body to be neglected. So even here, like it's, when we're doing the lying leg raises, it's lower abs and hip flexors is really all you're working on here. But it's just the point of leaving no stone unturned and no body part out of the total plan of programming. And after the lying leg raises, all I did was 5 sets of planks for a minute, and that wraps up that workout. That's a long workout. It takes me about 90 minutes to complete. But next day is chest, shoulders, and arms, and I did film that one as well. There will be a YouTube video coming out with the same sort of synopsis. I'm going to try and, or commentary, I'm going to try and make them a little bit shorter than this one, but I did want to show most of the working sets because I did feel like I have a lot to talk about during the execution of the exercises and technique and whatnot. So, plus if it's something that's interesting to you and you're doing your cardio, if you're doing as much cardio as me, it's nice to have something just kind of you can watch and kind of it'll distract you from what you're doing. But probably halt on these videos, these long ones anyways, until the next training block. If you have any ideas, anything that you want to ask me or see inside of what I'm prepping for, just go ahead and send me a message, whether it be on Facebook or Instagram, or comment on the video. Subscribe or don't. I'm not really doing this to get a giant following. It's just something to document this prep, and I got the time for it, so that's great. I love it if you subscribe, but if you don't, no big deal. But as of now, as I'm recording this, I'm about a week ahead of time, slightly less. Sitting at 173.5 pounds, which puts me roughly 20 full pounds off of the lightweight limit, which I intend on squeaking into by any means necessary, hopefully. So everybody just stay sane, stay home if you can, stay safe. We're going to get through this together. It's going to be... There's light at the end of the tunnel already, you know? So just stay safe, stay sane, stay home if you can. Have yourself a good workout when you can. And until next time, I'll talk to you later.